Commissioner General, you've described the current situation in Gaza as dystopian, as post-apocalyptic, and yet potentially it could get even worse. We're looking at a situation where in January there could be Israeli legislation implemented that would outlaw UNRWA. On top of everything else that people in Gaza are suffering, what would this mean for them?
I indeed described the situation as being a dystopian horror. I mean, if you listen to our colleagues on the ground, they are telling us stories about people in north of Gaza just waiting to be killed by airstrike, trying to struggle not to die again because of diseases or because of hunger. The level of destruction is absolutely unbelievable, and indeed people have been reduced to live in the rubble, in the garbage, in the sewage water, and without any hope of a better future. Now, in this context, we have an humanitarian response. UNRWA is the backbone of this response, partner with a number of UN agencies, but would UNRWA have to disappear from Gaza, not only our collective ability to respond to unprecedented need would decrease, but we would also sacrifice the future generation. Today, Stephen, we have more than 650,000 girls and boys living in the rubble, deeply traumatized. And if you get rid of an agency like UNRWA, who will be in charge to bring them back in a learning environment? There is absolutely no United Nations agency geared to provide public-like services like education at the primary, secondary age. That would mean sacrificing an entire generation. That would also mean, that we would plant the seed for more extremism, for more resentment, and for more hate in the future. So the consequences would definitely be catastrophic.
And for those unaware of what exactly UNRWA does on the ground, not just in Gaza, but in the West Bank, in East Jerusalem, and Lebanon, and Syria, it goes beyond education, right? What other services do you provide for Palestinian refugees?
Well, UNRWA is primarily operating in Lebanon, in Syria, in Jordan, in the West Bank, East Jerusalem, and Gaza. We are primarily a human development organization, providing public-like services such as education to more than 550,000 girls and boys across the region. We are running 700 schools, but we are also providing primary health care to more than 2 million people across the region. And only in Gaza today, despite the war, despite the challenges our staff are confronted with, we are still providing on a daily basis 16,000 consultations.
How do you do that in times of war, during active combat? More than around 90% of Gaza is considered under evacuation orders. How do your staff actually operate? Are they also on the move, or are you positioned in your traditional centres? What is it like on that daily life for your workers?
Our staff is primarily from the community, so basically they endure the same challenges, the same suffering, the same tragedy than anyone else in Gaza. As you know, people have been on the move constantly. They have been kind of pinballs. Our staff also, being part of the community, has followed the community. Our staff also is living in shelters which, as you know, most of the time have been damaged or even targeted. So somehow our strength is that our staff is part of the community, and because they are part of the community, because they move with the community, we have this proximity and ability to provide these services.
There seems to be, on the one hand, some consensus on this. The United States has said that UNRWA's mission is critical. The Security Council has demanded that it not be disbanded, and yet this legislation could pass. What actual steps can be taken? Who are you talking to here at the United Nations headquarters? What can be done, if anything?
Well, I addressed the General Assembly last week. I went also to Riyadh for the Global Alliance for the Two-State Solution, and my ask to the member states is very clear. First, we need to convince the Israeli government to put on hold the implementation of these laws. And once this is on hold, we need to insert the role of the agency within any possible political pathway leading to a two-state solution, leading to empowered Palestinian institution. In fact, only a functioning state, public institution, can properly take over the activities of UNRWA. And if we do not do this, and if in 3 months' time we stop abruptly all the activities of UNRWA, that would create a vacuum. It's like throwing the baby with the water. And if there is a vacuum, how will it be filled? Because there is absolutely no ecosystem which like vacuums, and certainly not by anything that Israel or the Palestinian or any of us would like to see.
And what about with the Israelis? Are there direct talks or indirect talks through mediators to press home this point that you've made this week at the UN, that if UNRWA has to stand down, ultimately it's up to Israel to take care of the people on the ground in Gaza?
Yes, ultimately, if UNRWA has to end up its activity, and UNRWA is a United Nations response to the plight of the Palestinian refugees, UNRWA in reality is a tool of the international community, of the UN General Assembly. So if UNRWA is dismantled or has to end its activities on demand of one member state, that means the onus will shift back on the shoulder of the occupying power, being the state of Israel, and they will have to be the one to provide education and primary health to millions of Palestinians.
You've said this law is politically motivated. What did you mean by that? Who could possibly stand to gain from a situation like this?
You know, we keep hearing that this law has been designed because UNRWA is colluding or infiltrated by Hamas. But, you know, we are just a casualty of this war. We are a soft target. We have been under harsh criticism from Hamas over the last few years because of our education, because we were promoting gender equality, because we were organizing summer camp with girls and boys together to promote art, music, and sport. And there is also in Israel a belief that if you get rid of UNRWA, you will strip the Palestinian from the refugee status, and through this you will also undermine the future aspiration of the Palestinian for self-determination. In a certain extent, they are unilaterally modifying the parameter for a future solution. So yes, I do believe that the primary reason behind this law, and we heard it from the author of the law saying this is one opportunity in a generation to once for all put an end to the refugee status or to the victimhood that UNRWA might have perpetuated. But here again, it's a false argument because even if UNRWA would end its activities, the refugee status will continue. The refugee status is enshrined in Resolution 194 of the General Assembly, whereas the mandate of UNRWA is enshrined in a completely different resolution which was adopted later on. We definitely need the presence of international media. We had heroic Palestinian journalists who have reported the situation in Gaza, but unfortunately international media have been denied access, and this is also fueling ultimately this war of narrative that we are witnessing. And indeed, one of the questions we should ask ourselves is what objective is Israel pursuing by denying the access of international journalists in Gaza? Journalists are used to go in war zone. They have gone to Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, Yemen. Why are they prevented to go to Gaza?